sectors and discuss the issues of the sectors. And we talk to our ministries and our government directly. We have strong networks in Germany and in the world, actually. We are a member of Business Europe that does the same that PDI does on the European level. And then, this is interesting for Sub-Saharan Africa, we are a member of the Sub-Saharan Africa initiative of German industry with the German African Business Association as well as the Chamber of Commerces. For example, myself, I'm responsible for Sub-Saharan Africa. I'm also coordinating a project that we have with the East African Business Council. That's a different thing. When the German industry has certain concerns or issues with doing business in Africa, I talk to our ministries. This includes the Ministry of Economics, Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, Ministry of Finance, and also the Ministry of Education, for example. We're in very close contact with those. We also have a very strong dialogue with NGOs. We just recently had our conference on resources, and I've never been there. It's biannual. I've been only one and a half years with PDI, so I didn't know it. And I expected old men in suits discussing resource issues. But it was actually quite lovely. There were many NGOs. There were very open discussions about how we can secure resources for German industries while still supporting human rights, improving the living situations of the people where the resources actually come from. So it is really a very open dialogue with all sorts of actors in the different fields. Okay, let's talk about Africa and Germany. As you can see, we import only 2.6% of our products from Africa. This is quite low, and we would like to change that. We export even less. 2% of our exports go to Africa. My personal opinion, it's more important in order to help African economies develop, it's more important to import, but I think trade relations should also be mutual. So we should also change this. Also, for us, trade is the first step to investment. Only companies that know the continent and have been trading there and know people are gonna invest and actually create jobs. So in order to promote investments, I think you always have to promote trade. What does BDI do to promote those trade relations? We had our strategy in 2014 published that says we should stop looking at Africa as the poor continent that needs to be helped, but instead as a partner on eye level that you can do business with, that you take out of this donor-receiver relationship, but start proper business relations on an eye level. And we also, of course, promoted Africa as the continent of opportunities, so that German companies would go there and actually invest in Africa. And they only do that if they see the opportunities. So far, we only have about 1,000 companies, German companies in Africa. That's an estimate. The number is somewhere probably between 800 and 1,200, I don't know, because there are no official numbers on that, but around about 1,000 companies with 1.5 billion euro FDI invested in Africa. That's only 1% of German FDI worldwide. So it's really, really low. About 200,000 jobs created so far. There's still a lot of potential to raise that number. Why do I think German companies bring or are important for Africa. They bring high standards. They focus on sustainability. They honor the rights of their employees. They bring vocational training, know-how transfer, great technology. So I think it is an asset. Whenever I go, I'm in Africa quite often, and people keep asking me, what do I do to get a job at a German company? It's really considered to be a good thing to work there. It's really what people want. German companies in Africa are really working in all kinds of sectors. We have construction here. You can't really see it. This is, for example, Dar es Salaam, a German company that built a bus rapid transit system. We have DHL in Ghana, for example, employing about 500 people. We have construction materials. That's a cement factory over there in Ghana, also by German investors. We have banks, chemicals, construction, really all kinds of sectors. This is one of my favorite topics, actually. Innovation. More and more German companies are working with local startups to help them grow. And I think if Africa Africa needs to be developed, but it's probably not by industrialization. Even though the governments really want that, it's not going to be enough. One main reason would be that everything is already produced in Asia. So there's so little. The textile industry is not going to move to Africa, probably. Maybe it is, we don't know. But it is, since Africa is kind of a latecomer within development. It's not probably it's going to develop in the traditional way. So the young entrepreneurs are really the best asset Africa has, developing new products, new ideas, new solutions in Africa. Whenever I'm there at conferences, I'm always so impressed by the creative potential that they have. So I really enjoy seeing that more and more German companies work with those kind of entrepreneurs to help them grow. One example would be Merck, who has accelerators in Nairobi, and is bringing also African startups to Germany to develop their products here, and then start scaling, hopefully. This is a really cool investment, I think. It's quite new. Volkswagen has been in Africa for a long time, mostly in South Africa. They just opened recently a factory, an assembly in Kenya, assembling 1,000 cars per year at the moment. And they also start assembling in Rwanda soon. And there they've invested 20 million euros. They're working closely with our Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development. So there's really a strong focus on creating jobs. And they are also working with a Rwandan startup to create the new Uber. Uber is not allowed in Rwanda. So they are creating a new hailing app for the Rwandan market to start a new mobility concept. It's really impressive, and I'm excited to see where it goes. This is just something that I found yesterday. Just a quote by a website that's evaluating employers in Africa, and just saying what I said before, that German companies are really valued in Africa. There are bottlenecks that needs to be addressed. This is it's not quite clear, but this is our survey that we took with the B20. So it's not only German companies, but international companies, asking them about their challenges in Africa. And they have all sorts of challenges. One, for example, would be regulation. One example, there are 2 German companies that want to open a vaccine factory in East Africa. The market is too small if you have it only for one country. You can't scale enough. So you need the whole market, the whole East African community market. Regulations in each country are different. So in each country, the companies would have to go through the whole process of getting the vaccines on the market, and it's way too expensive. So regulation must be harmonized. That's only one example. And it's 57% of companies who say that's an issue. We have legal issues. I have several companies complaining about having legal issues with partners, for example, and it takes years to get them solved in court. So things are still quite slow. We have political risks. In Kenya, when there's election, for 6 months, the economy stands still. So warehouses are filling up, no one is buying anything. This is one example. Kenya is for sure not the rule, but more the exception when it comes to elections. But still, we have those kind of, not as strong, but those kind of issues in several African countries. Well, corruption, of course, still always an issue. Missing infrastructure. If you produce goods and you can't take them out of the country because there are no roads, then it's just too expensive, and you rather produce somewhere else. Well, and then we have all sorts of other issues. Getting finances can be difficult. Getting skilled workers. Long visa application procedures. All sorts of issues that needs to be addressed. And they are addressed right now, slowly. They haven't addressed for a while, but they are still addressed. We have 3 new initiatives by German government. We have the Marshall Plan with Africa, we have the G20 Compact with Africa, and we have Pro-Africa from our Ministry of Economics. And all the 3 address the doing business framework in Africa and want to make things easier for investment. And what's really new about this, the ideas are quite old, but what's really new about this is that they're really in contact with the private sector, meaning us, to learn what really the challenges are and how to improve the situation. It's still early to see any results. Well, we see how much can be done. Yeah. That was my presentation. Thank you.
What's causing that? It seems to me like to be an easy trade-off. What's the biggest, besides regulation and everything else?
I think the biggest issue is for German products to be exported to Africa is the products are too expensive, too high technology. German companies tend to produce very specific items, like, I don't know, some small things that can be used in high technology production somewhere. So African industry is not yet a market. And for import, I think European regulation is also a huge issue, and quality. So the German government actually has a new project to improve quality of African products to help them get the licenses to import to the European market.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question. But obviously,
Should definitely work on that more. But they just started the project, the new projects now, so we see where it goes.
Good morning, Stephanie. When did they start this project? We were talking about the last forum, like for Africa 20.
Last year. They're just starting to implement them now.
And it's always the Ministry of Trade or?
No, sorry. This is our Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development. Pro Africa is our Ministry of Economics, and Compact is mostly our Ministry of Finance. In the beginning, we were complaining a lot that they have 3 new strategies now, and they didn't seem to really coordinate. But apparently, they took it seriously, and they are now communicating better. And we have those meetings with the different ministries together, trying to streamline the initiatives.
Was this also coming out of the effect of the refugee streams? Like
Yeah.
when we say we need to develop Africa more so people, have a better life and they don't need to run away?
I think so. Unfortunately, yes. For the political agenda, this was a huge push, especially for the compact with Africa.
Gonzalo, I'm from Portugal. Yesterday we had a very interesting discussion. Either Europe is sleeping or not in terms of participation in Africa. Looks like these projects they started last year. What is your opinion regarding this topic? Are we really sleeping? Are Africa developing because of those barriers? Sometimes they develop the barriers to investment. Are those barriers very decisive in this fact that Europe is still sleeping? And I would like to ask also if these projects, there were more European countries involved or it was only Germany?
I'll start with the last question. The G20 is led by Germany, but it's an international initiatives with the international finance organizations as well. The others are purely German. When it comes to sleeping, I've heard that a lot, especially about German companies. There are different reasons. For once, it's not really a market yet for many products. Germans are very risk averse, and I think I can't really speak about companies in France, or I think they are not as risk averse. But compared to the Chinese competition, those are supported by government banks and by government guarantees. So if they lose their money, they have the government stepping in. German companies or European companies don't have that. So I would say the awareness could be better about the potential of the African market. There could be more information. We are also working on that. But it's not only for sleepy reasons that we are not there yet.
Okay, I have another question. Because your job looks very interesting. you are sort of like a mediator.
Yes.
You look like you work on stakeholders negotiations.
Yes.
Like that. Because I'm very interested in that topic. And how do you work with NGOs, civil society, governments, and the issues in Africa? So you find an issue, you find a project, and somehow you communicate this to the government, and there is the support of the NGOs. Can you give me some image of a chain of procedures, how all these work?
I must say I'm not that much in contact with the NGOs, because what we do for representing the German interests is very often quite technical. For example, guarantees, Hermesdeckung, guarantees of the German government. Companies who want those for certain African countries need to have like a Selbstbehalt. I don't know the English word, but they can cover only 90%, but 10% they have to cover themselves. So that's a huge risk for German companies if they do very big projects. So this is not really NGO related issues that I would say we coordinate. It's very, very technical.
But that's the problem, because NGOs and civil society should have more active participation in those issues, because normally NGOs involve the community, and community should be involved
Yeah, I agree.
Their opinion somehow it's not valorized.
Yeah, true. Well, I can't really say, but I think that would more be the job of the companies that are actually doing the investment, and then the local government and and our Ministry of Development. And as far as I know, they are in very close contact with the NGOs. But we are not directly involved in those projects. We represent the interests of the companies, but we're not part of the negotiation process when it comes to the actual development of the project.
Yeah, I have a question. My name is Esteban. I'm a journalist and an advertiser, and yeah, I am in my halfway studying criminology as well. Yeah, I have a question regarding, because this is not only Germany, it's a lot of countries, but I want to understand, for example, how it's possible, as we can see here, for example, this is like Africa and Europe, a new partnership for development, peace, and better future. For example, we are talking about Germany, so I will mention just German actors. Some people remember Hans-Gert Pöttering, I think he's the president of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung right now, but he was, he was dealing also with weapons. He was member of the European Parliament, a very highlighted member of the European Parliament. I think was the European Commission of the President. But for example, the Ministry of Development and Cooperation, we had a person called Dirk Nibel, who was the former minister, and how it fits this idea that, for example, after he moved from the office, but of course you have some influences when you are in the office, that now is working in Rheinmetall, which is a weapon company, which is dealing with, African countries as well selling weapons, and one of the famous one was the Fox in the Pot, which was a military vehicle. So how can fit, this, arms dealing with a new partnership for development, peace, and better future? Because when I mention weapons and peace and better future, it's like if I say cake and diet.
I can't really say anything about Dirk Nibel. It was inexplicable to me. I don't understand how he can be the minister. But first, he wanted to actually abolish the ministry, then he was the minister, and then he went to Rheinmetall. I don't know. In the meantime, I would say security and development, well, not arms dealing, but security and development has to go together. Because once fragile states are, let's say, secured, stabilized, it is important that the economy steps up, so people actually can make a living, have jobs, have a better life, so the country stabilizes even more. So I would say security and development should go together. Arms dealing, I'm not sure.
Sorry, who's your biggest trading partner in Africa?
Biggest trading partner?
Yeah, in Africa. Which country?
South Africa.
Okay. And then my follow-up, you said that when German companies do business in Africa, you guys leave behind sustainability. My next question is, which types of sustainability and how do you measure the effect on the ground?
I wouldn't say they leave behind sustainability, but once they invest, they are there to stay. Like Volkswagen in South Africa, they've been there for more than 100 years. Siemens, the same. They don't come like traditional development projects. They don't come and after 3 years they go. They come to create jobs and value for a long time. So that's definitely one sustainability factor.
Yeah, I would like to ask where the PDI is operating from. Is it only in Berlin, or there are many cities in Germany, or like?
It's mostly in Berlin. We have a few like satellite offices. We also have satellite offices in Beijing and Washington and Brussels. So, well, not yet in Africa, unfortunately.
When was PDI created? Like, where did you guys
I'm not sure.
Do you guys have any measurement of the growth in Africa? Like, can you measure the progress in Africa? It just shows some percentage of the exports and imports you guys have had in Africa. Can you tell me about the progress? Like you said, Volkswagen has been there for 100 years. Can we see the progress of all these companies you said on the PDI? Can we see what it's actually doing? Are there any progress in Africa at all?
I actually tried to find data on for this presentation, and it was really difficult. So we don't have any, and I still need to find, the information. I know that a few companies have been there for a long time. A few have been leaving. I think trade has been declining in the last 50 years. I think it was stronger in the 70s, and then it went down. But I have currently no data on that.
You related West Africa via the Belgian
No, it's my former employer actually, but and we're in this SAFRI, Southern African Initiative of German Industry. We're working together, and well, yeah, we work together, but we're not really officially related.
I'll just ask you a moral question. Is the construction of the BDI activities, does it really meet the development based on your assessment of what you call what partnership for development should be? Does your assessment, so that you can churn out what you call reasonable proposals, does your assessment of the construction of the BDI activities does it really meet what you call partnership development needs of the African people?
We have something I haven't mentioned yet. We have two projects that is not really included in the traditional PDI activities. It's not political advocacy, and it's also supported by our Ministry of Development. One is a partnership with the East African Business Council. It is basically the same structure as BDI. It's an umbrella association of business associations and companies in East Africa promoting regional integration. We've been supporting them for 3 years to do better political advocacy, to do research, find out what the potential in the East African market is, what the private sector needs. We've been sending our experts to do workshops to help them strengthen the organization. So that's one project that we're doing. It always has, what we do always has to do with business and industry. We're not a traditional NGO working with rural populations. It's just not our area of expertise. We have a different project now with GIZ. It is working to bring German companies together with East African companies also, to help them scale and grow and find business partners in Germany for you always, when you think business, you always have to think, okay, what's in it for the German companies? They get contacts in East Africa, they get knowledge from East African companies. So it's really it should be a win-win situation for both sides. That's two projects that we're doing that actually focus on development.
Following from this question and my question to paraphrase, has it actually been a win-win from your assessment? Of course, you might not have measuring index of growth. Has it actually been a win-win situation for BDI and its businesses, or the representation of its interest with African businesses and growth? Has it actually been a win-win?
Do you mean the two projects that I've been just...
Some of the projects with your interest in business, has it actually been a win-win situation for the BDI German businesses with
Well, the one project, the one that wants to bring together German companies and African companies, is just starting now, so I can't tell. For our EIBC partnership, I would say no, probably, because I think personally that the East African Business Council has profited a lot more than the German companies. We're focusing a lot of on a lot of our efforts on improving their work, improving their organization. We've been bringing a few German companies to their conferences, also as sponsors, by the way, so they actually got some money out of it. I don't know anything about German companies that actually got business out of this partnership. Could be. I just don't know, and I think the African side has had more benefits. For the investments in Africa, I would say yes, but that I explained in my presentation. I think the kind of jobs that were created in Africa have been helping a lot of people, and it is beneficial for both sides.
Sorry, but isn't that the very nature of sustainability? Initially, somebody has to invest more in the beginning, and the definition is that it's long-term thinking. So maybe for now, the German companies are investing heavily and paying more, and the African companies are probably benefiting financially, but maybe that gets used for resource and skills development, and then further down the line, there's a merging of competence.
Hopefully.
Isn't that the model of sustainable?
I'm,
The model of sustainability that's being applied when they're investing, aren't they doing assessments and then it just
Of course, yeah. Well, in the beginning they invest, and then they want to take from that investment, and hopefully reinvesting the resources in the market.
Yeah, 'cause I think it's not necessarily a bad thing that they pay more now in the beginning.
No, I did never said it was a bad thing. I just say they've been investing a little more, but.
For the future, what do you think the German companies and the European companies and us, the regular people, should do like to improve the lifestyle and productivity in Africa?
Buy African products, probably. I would say, as regular people, I would really say buy African products and promote them. That's and of course buy sustainably produced African products.
One more question. I don't know the name, but you know the free trading, like where there's no rules and everything. Like where there was this story, for example, that in Ghana you went to the market and the local farmers could not sell their chickens because they were, I don't know if it was I think European or East European companies imported like frozen chicken meat, which was much cheaper quality, and you know because of there is these like I don't know the name in English, Freihandelsabkommen. So what is the situation with this? Because I mean somebody needs to control these things. It's crazy, yeah. I mean we send our old rotten meat to there and people buy it because it's cheaper. I mean it's sick. It can't be.
Should be. It has, in my opinion, it has nothing to do with the free trade agreements. For now, we have the everything but arms treaty for most African countries, meaning that they can export to the European market without paying any duties. Ghana now has signed an EPA, an Economic Partnership Agreement, that's giving access to the European market for Ghanaian companies, and at the same time offering European companies free access to the African markets. The African governments still have the opportunity to protect their markets from about 20% from imports for about tax-free imports for about 20%, so of the goods. So they could still stop the import of certain goods without any issues. The EPAs is really a complicated topic, especially, well, it's highly discussed. I think we need the EPAs because only they offer a long-term free access to the European market, while at the same time protecting the African market, and it's conform to the WTO law.
I think it's extremely important to have focus on this, because when I just spin the idea further to control what's going to happen, because like the population is growing, that means more food is also needed, agriculture. So who's controlling this? At the end of the day, we maybe want to avoid that Africa grows, but at the same time they're bringing in, like in South America, like spraying all the pesticides and spoiling everything and polluting everything. Like it's kind of linked with them together, I think. Because if once the economy will grow, you will need to avoid that black area, or these doors where people can sneak through and bring these kind of bad buckets into the.
Yeah. I'm really not an expert on agriculture, but I would say that those agreements still offer the possibility of protection, and also the governments in Africa, they can still make their own laws about what pesticides are allowed, and all those kinds of regulation, and also services are not part of the EPAs. It's really strictly trade. And I think it's always criticized that they can only protect 20% of the goods from tax-free imports. But I think 20% is a lot, and if some governments were not quite smart in which sectors they were protecting. Sectors that can potentially really grow and be part of the future. But there was one country that was protecting matches from tax-free imports, because apparently the president had a friend who owned a match factory, and so matches are now protected. That's not what the EPAs were about.
Is there a track of why I keep asking about output, productivity, win-win situation? Is because shouldn't PDI be able to track the level, or if there is any, of capital flight from its investments in Africa? Has PDI any record, or it's any way to track the amount of profit that comes from African German companies in Africa that is being transferred to Germany? Because you're mentioning a lot of risk factors here why German companies don't invest in Africa or have a problem with output. But we're not having a holistic record on the quantum of capital flight that is leaving Africa to Germany as a result of stable companies in Germany. That's why I'm asking more questions, fairness.
Yeah.
Because this has a way of depicting a true picture of what is a win-win situation.
Would be good to have those kind of data. We are financed by the companies. So if I go to Volkswagen and say, okay, now give me that data, how much did you take out of Africa? They're going to say, we are paying you to represent our interests. We're not giving you the data. Or maybe they would, but I don't know. It's really, we don't have the resources to get this kind of information, and we're really representing the company's interests. So I would really like some NGO, some think tank, someone to get the information for us also to know better. And but for us it's impossible to get that kind of information, unfortunately.
So, okay, just
Quickly.
one last one.
What about the opposite? African foreign investment in Europe. Is Germany giving like support? What kind of support is Germany giving for African companies?
Investment, I don't know. Actually, I think there are a few companies that are investing in Europe, but it's mostly South African and really just a few. For import, there are import desks in different African countries to help them meet the regulations in Europe, to inform them on what needs to be done to help them to import. GIZ is doing a lot of projects to increase increase quality along the value chain to help Africans to import to Europe. So there is some activities.
Thank you to Lara.
Thank you.